As a child, I loved spending time on the beach. I was quite content with just playing on the sand or swimming in the sea, even if no other children were around to play with me. I could spend hours drawing with a stick or building sand castles. I remember drawing a picture quite common for a child my age: a house with a chimney, window and the door, some grass, the tree, and a girl. I could get the house just right. The grass was not a problem, and the tree didn't present much of a difficulty either. But a girl was a challenge to draw. I could never get her face just right. It wasn't easy for me to draw with pencil on the paper, let alone with a stick on the sand. The girl's nose would come out either too big or too small. The eyes were too wide or too narrow. The mouth would be just a dot, but I wanted her to smile. So I kept erasing the image of the girl by brushing off the sand with my palm and starting over again and again. Finally, I was able to draw one image that I liked, even though it was not the perfect one. Just then, the wave came, and the whole picture was gone. In this week's Parasha Noah, we read about the flood which swept away the whole population of the earth, all its inhabitants, including the animals. All died, except for Noah, his immediate family, and some animals who survived by escaping the flood on the ark which Noah built following God's instructions. When Noah and his household finally reached the dry land, Noah took clean animals and clean birds and put them on the altar to sacrifice to God. The Lord smelled the pleasing odor, and the Lord said to himself, "Never again will I doom the earth because of man, since the devising of man's mind are evil from his youth. Nor will I ever destroy every living being, as I have done, so long as the earth endures, seed time and harvest, cold and heat, summer and winter, day and night shall not cease." What could have angered God so much that he would smite all the inhabitants and all that was on earth? What kind of sin or sins did people commit to invoke such a disaster not only on themselves but on everything else that was on earth? While Rashi and Ibn Ezra suggest in their commentaries that the sin was that people exploited each other sexually, according to Talmud, the world was immersed in jealousy, greed, theft, violence, lying, intolerance, deception, and fraud. There are rabbis who comment that the greatest sin was from the abundance and prosperity at the time that resulted in people behaving with arrogance and insolence. God had a certain image in mind when he created Adam, a person. There was a perfection God wanted to achieve. It didn't go exactly according to plan. God had sent away Adam and Eve from Garden of Eden to earth, where they were able to prove their worthiness by their hard work. Eventually, the land was inhabited by more people, and we may assume they were pleasing God for some time because the Torah gives a list of generations that followed Adam, without mentioning of God's particular frustration with them until the time of Noah. Noah was the tzaddik bedorotav, the righteous person in his generation. Based on the fact that Noah was the righteous man in his generation, and he and his immediate family were saved from the flood, leads us to think that all the rest were corrupted. God then carefully planned Noah's escape. God wanted to see the perfection in his creation, but could only detect it in Noah. The rest of the population were far from perfect. So, just like I brushed off the image of the girl on the sand, God flooded the earth to erase the entire picture. For a while, God was angry and didn't realize the collateral proportion of the damage to his creation until he smelled the aroma of the burnt offering from the altar made by Noah. Perhaps that smell brought God back to senses, and God realized that each person has an evil part in them from the youth. From the youth, meaning not from birth, meaning God realized that he shouldn't have punished the innocent children and animals and the rest who had nothing to do with the corruption. God decided that he will never again destroy the earth because of men, meaning the evil part that is in us. When I attempted to draw a perfect image of my girl in the sand, I realized after a few attempts that I cannot get her to be perfect, yet I can eventually come to like the image I have created. God may have realized that while he cannot achieve the perfection in his creation of the real human beings, he can still love them for who they are, with all their imperfections. And for the evil that exists in us, he cannot destroy the entire earth, or the innocent souls for that matter. God made a promise after the flood that he shall never do that again. Our generation is no different from the ones that preceded us. We're evil and good, pious and sinful. I hope that God doesn't change his mind.